Hey there. I really hope that you find yourself in a group as you're watching this video this week, because so much of what we're going to go over and learning about is really going to come alive in the context of community, especially this week. I sit in a group every week just like you in a living room, and the conversations are filled with different experiences with pain and suffering, different personalities, different life experiences, different assumptions about God, and even some really different religious backgrounds, all coming together in a conversation on what it looks like when we go through suffering. If you missed the message this week, I took a little bit of a different take on the life of Job. So far in the series, we've worked through what Job's suffering looked like, and really what can we learn about our own suffering in light of his experiences and what he went through. And I don't know about you, but it hasn't necessarily been the easiest of conversation. Suffering and wondering why things happen the way they do is really one of the hardest parts of life for sure, and the most challenging to people's faith. This week, what we're going to jump into, I believe, is the second hardest part of life, and that's watching someone that you love or care about suffer. And here's why: because there is nothing that you can do to fix it. There are no words, there are no actions, there are no steps, there's no amount of love or support that can fix it, and that's hard to watch. The other part is that I think makes it really tough is that you may never get that person back. See, there's a certain type of suffering that is life-altering pain, and you come out on the other side a different person. And if you can't accept that new person and let go of the old person, your relationship may not make it. And it's why we see so many marriages fall apart after the death of a child. You come out of that pain a different person, and if the relationship can't absorb that change, it's really difficult, whether that's in a friendship or in a marriage. And so what do you do then? How do you walk through pain and suffering with someone that you love? If you were with us on Sunday or caught the message online, we walked back through what the people in Job's life did that worked, and then we walked through what didn't work and where they got it wrong. And there's a lot to go over. It's a million chapters of bantering between Job and his wife, and then Job and his friends. And I think where I want to land specifically in your group tonight is what Job's friends did when they first heard that he was hurting. You can find this part in the story in Job chapter 2, starting in verse 11, and it says this: "When 3 of Job's friends heard of the tragedy he had suffered, they got together and traveled from their homes to comfort and console him. When they saw Job from a distance, they scarcely recognized him." I mean, can you imagine seeing people that you love in that kind of pain? And then it keeps going, and it says, "Wailing loudly, they tore their robes and threw dust in the air over their heads to show their grief. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and nights." And I love this part, and this is how you know they're men and not women. "No one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words." And here's why I really love this, and why I think it matters for your group specifically and in the context of community. They heard he was suffering. Their friend was absolutely going through it, and they knew it. They heard about it. They knew it was happening. They got together, and they just decided to show up. To show up for their friend. They didn't debate whether he would want them to come or not. They didn't worry about whether they would feel uncomfortable seeing him hurt like that. They didn't worry about what they would say or what they wouldn't say, or if they would get it right when they saw him. They just showed up in the middle of his pain, in the middle of his sorrow, in the middle of his absolute suffering. They showed up and they stayed with him for 7 whole days. And I really love this line: "No one said a word, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words." No one said a word, because there just really were no words to be said. They just made sure he wasn't alone until he was ready to talk about it. And man, that's the kind of friends and the kind of people that we should be, and how we should show up in the lives of other people. I showed a clip on Sunday from my favorite show, Ted Lasso, and I want to leave you with this today and to discuss it in your group. And here's what he said: "I promise you there is something worse out there than being sad, and that's being alone and being sad." And he says, "It ain't no one in this room alone." I'm so glad that you're in a group. Maybe you're new to it. Maybe you're just starting to get to know the people sitting next to you and trying to decide if they are trustworthy or not. Or maybe some of your closest friends are around that room today. Wherever you find yourself in that group, I can promise you this: if you will let it, the group that you're sitting in will show up for you in your pain. That's the beauty of community. Job's friends didn't get it all right for sure, but they showed up and they sat in his pain with him. And I think we have a ton to learn from that, because I think so often we allow ourselves and our hesitations and our doubts that maybe we don't have the right answers to keep us from showing up in the lives of the people that we care about. And so today, maybe the encouragement for you is just simply show up. and say nothing, but just let them know that the people you love who are hurting and suffering, that they're not alone and that you're going to walk through it with them.